With this group. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day. We really do appreciate it. We hope that you find these deep dives informative and helpful. Just to start off with a little bit of this one, designing for Q-SYS VisionSuite. Also, ACPR will be a part of it. And then we're also going to talk about Seervision as well, which is, we've kind of added the two together, which is why it goes a little bit longer than an hour. But the intent of this class is kind of focused for design engineers, salespeople, people that are specifying. Of course, any of the field technicians more than welcome. We don't kick anybody out of any of the deep dives. But just understand that, our thought process when, a little over a year ago when we started rolling out the VisionSuite line of products and software and stuff, that we wanted to make sure that the people designing the systems had the tools they needed so that when they were designing stuff, when that design made it to the field, everything was there that those field folks needed. Now, what we do have for the field engineers and people that will actually be commissioning the systems, regionally, we've been holding trainings to certify those people and how to do this. There's an online portion that you can go take at training.qsc.com. And then there's a follow-up live certification part that is happening in different regions. We get into the holiday season, there may not be a lot of those going on, but reach out to your regional rep if you need some training like that. Anyways, so we'll get started. Thank you, everybody, for getting in. We got 24 folks. I'm Dan Waltons, and let's get started here. So let me share my screen. Which one do I want to share? There we go. All right. So like I mentioned, we are designing for Q-SYS VisionSuite, ACPR, and for Seervision. So we'll just get started on those. Let's see where we're, the next slide. So let's just, in this webinar, we'll be covering an overview of the VisionSuite products. We'll look at features now available directly with the Q-SYS NC series camera, facets of automatic camera preset recall, or what we'll be referring to as ACPR. So a lot of different things. We're going to talk about that so we kind of have, get an understanding of where we're at on. What is ACPR? So a lot of people ask that question. ACPR is automatic camera preset recall. And so what we're doing in this is we're using different methodology where we can either take positional data from a beamforming ceiling mic, or even lobes from a beamforming ceiling mic, and have those and the gates from that. And we'll be able to trigger presets within the camera system to recall to that location and things like that. So we'll dive a little bit more as we get into it as well. But the VisionSuite currently consists of 3 products. When you talk about ACPR and auto framing and those features, first off is the Q-SYS NC series cameras now with auto framing. So if you have any of our older cameras, they will work in an ACPR setup. They just don't have the chipset and the processor inside to be able to leverage the feature of auto framing, which for me, that auto framing really brought the ACPR across the finish line quite well. And if you haven't seen a live demo of it, we do host live demos of that. And you can, once again, reach out to your regional reps and they can set up demos for you on that as well. The automatic camera preset recall plugin is another piece of that. So that's kind of where we come in with the control part over here. And then Seervision intelligent presenter tracking. So that's kind of the whole VisionSuite. Today, we're just going to kind of talk about, or at the first part of this, we're going to talk about ACPR and auto framing and things that are aside from the Seervision server and what it does. And I also want you to leave this webinar today understanding what need best fit, which one of these tools best fits the scenarios you're going into. And so if I don't make that clear, make sure that you pop a question in there, and let's make sure that you leave out of here understanding the difference between the two. The VisionSuite is going to allow you as an integrator to design as simple or as robust of a conferencing camera solution as desired, with the ability to add features later on as the system's needs change, or even be able to expand. If a client has a limited budget at this point, you can start with some small features and then grow to others. You're also going to hear me talk about a lot of things like this may not be the right tool for this particular room. This may not. we're not here to sell you a bunch of stuff. We want to make sure that what you put in is the right solution for the room and is the right solution for your customer. Let's see, I keep trying to advance slides from my keyboard and it's not working. So let's talk about first off, we'll talk about the NC series native camera features. We have 3 different variants of our cameras. On the left, you see the NC 1280. On the far right, you see the NC 20x60. So we try to make our naming conventions make some sense. So NC, our last series were called PTZ and then the numbers afterwards, but we've changed these to NC to kind of follow along with our network microphone NM. So NC stands for network camera, and then you have 12x80, which is a 12 times zoom and an 80-degree field of view. And then the NC 2060 is a network camera, and it has a 20 times zoom. So when you really need to get a little tighter shot there, and it only has a 60-degree field of view in it. So that's kind of what you're looking for there. They are both motorized pan tilt zoom functionality. They have and then that takes me on to the NC 110. So the NC 110 is actually an ePTZ camera. So it is just it outputs a 1080 up to a 1080p signal, but it's a 4K panel in there. And what we do is, when we're looking at the whole, when we zoom in, we're just chopping a piece out of that 4K panel there. So no moving optics on that. It's just a nice 110-degree view. You're going to find that works great in, huddle rooms, things like that. Also, maybe we'll find some other opportunities for that when I go through some of the system design recommendations there. All of these are all 4K image sensors. That's kind of how we do a 1080p out of the NC 1280 and 2060, but that's what enables us to be able to do that auto framing, right? So we can kind of pull that out or tighten it up as we need to. So all 3 of these are compatible with the ACPR plugin and the Seervision AI camera tracking solution. So with auto framing enabled, the NC camera will resize the image and capture all faces that are detected in that view. So we're just looking for what the computer believes is a human face, and then as people come into the field of view, it will resize to add for that person. Auto framing will also resize when a detective face moves outside of the deadband. It will pop back out. For smaller rooms, using a single camera, auto framing may be a better choice than ACPR. One of the first rooms that we set up internally to do demonstrations of ACPR was kind of a narrow conference room, only had about 4 seats down each side of the table. And, trying to get multiple shots in that room just didn't make a lot of sense. But what auto framing will do for you is, I can take a smaller medium-sized conference room like that, and the frame will just capture the whole room. And then when someone comes in, and sits at the far end of the table, it's going to tighten that shot up onto that person. And then let's say someone comes late to the meeting and they come sit closer to the display or closer to the camera. It's just going to open that shot up. So it's like having a camera operator there. We all know how many times you join a call and people are just, the camera's all the way zoomed out and there's one person sitting as far away possible. So it helps out a little bit. It's a great little tool. There's no extra feature, nothing you need to do besides go into the camera control blocks for your programmers, and they simply just enable auto framing, and they can set up how much the padding is and how fast it transitions between that. You can also get in there a face count. So we're not storing any facial data or anything like that, but we're actually using this in some of the larger trade show. You may see this at Infocom, where we've got some games going on an escape room type, interesting stuff like that, where we're actually counting how many people are in the room based on the face count and things like that. But you may be able to use this for how often does this, how many people are average in each meeting. So there is metadata there that you can do as well. Legacy, and once again, I do want to remind you that legacy cameras, the PTZ series 12, 1272 and the 20x60 do not support auto framing. So the NC series district, the camera calculator is located on the product page for the NC cameras. You can kind of see a snippet of this here. It is a really nice tool to have because you can kind of come in, set what distance that you believe the furthest person back is, and we're going to recommend different cameras based on how far back you are in that as well. So kind of a handy tool. Look for that on the website. Automatic camera preset recall. So this is we're going to talk about what that is exactly, and it's audience-based switching based on who's in there. We'll talk about the concepts and considerations you need to think about, ACPR versus tracking, the components that are required. We'll do some design examples on this, and then we'll talk about some control options and overall best practices. So that dirty word gain structure is going to rear its head again, and how important that is because we're doing this based on audio. But let's just take a look at what we're doing here. So audience-based switching here with ACPR is predetermined camera positions, right? So I'm going to set this conference room up so that when when I get an indication from one of the triggers we might be a beamforming mic that gives us positional data. When it senses that person at the head of the table is talking, and that positional data indicates that, we're going to take that shot at the end. We're going to take a camera preset there. If someone in the first seat starts to talk, we're going to take that shot there. This graphic's a little bit of a misnomer. One of the things that we teach in our field training class is that you typically won't zoom in on just to one tight shot like this on someone. That's not very natural in a meeting. I mean, typically in a meeting, you'll grab a little wider shot. You may grab one or two people, but you get the idea here. It's based on either a gated microphone information or positional data versus camera tracking. So camera tracking is when we get what we'll talk about at the end towards the end of the webinar, which is we do that with our Seervision product. It continually adjusts the camera. Think about it having, kind of an AI-driven camera operator. So they're going to be tracking the person in and out. We have the ability to do facial. We're doing a facial and a structural recognition. So it's not 100% based on that. We'll talk a little bit more, like people can turn around and they still recognize, the distance between the shoulder and the elbow and all of these different points. And we can also set up triggers and things around the space. So, this is for more of a presentation type space. And we'll dig into that a little bit more as we get into it. So the ACPR plugin leverages information that it gets from positional data or mics located in the room. What you saw here in this automation is that the person on the bottom side of the display here, they began to speak, and the beamforming microphone located where they were at. That information was sent to the Q-SYS processor, and the camera was then sent over to grab that shot. They were the first one. Now, if a person let me go back one. There we go. Let's go back to the automation here. So on here, there we go. Look for the autumn. So this person begins to speak. The microphone senses where they're at in the room. It identifies this wedge that they particularly be sitting in, and the camera goes over and shoots to them. So once the camera hits that position, it will select the active camera in the conference, and then until someone else speaks, it'll move there. The automatic camera, the ACPR plugin was initially created as a test by one of our Q-SYS software specialists. He was looking to see what he could be done with the information, the location information provided by an intelligent ceiling microphone. Through the internal use of Q-SYS is involved into kind of a text controller user component. And then once we started, asking some of our folks here, oh, I just had a light blink. Asking some of our folks internally, we're like, hey, I think customers might want to use something like this. So it really matured, and it kind of speaks to the Q-SYS platform and how it can be leveraged in that, we took it and we made it first it was just a script someone was playing with, and then it became a text controller kind of user component. and then it matured into a plugin. And I think that speaks volumes to the nature of the Q-SYS platform. Now that it's a full-blown plugin, we've been through several iterations of it. It's really definitely matured. If you use this, if you had a customer try this, 2 years ago, I mean, I commissioned a few of these systems in 2022. It's come light years ahead of that. So it's definitely, we've listened and heard and made a lot of different improvements on that. So the automatic camera preset call, what are the components that are required for this? Well, let's take a look. So any currently supported Q-SYS core is going to be required. Q-SYS NC series cameras are preferred. It does work with the old PTZ series, but you won't get the auto framing, which I think really helps solidify it. But if you had legacy cameras, you can make use of those. And then Q-SYS certified intelligent microphones and discrete microphones as well are the tools that you'll use to do that. ACPR is a plugin. It's found in the Q-SYS Designer Asset Manager. So if your folks that are familiar with the software, you can click on the little gear there, or you can go to Tools down to Asset Manager, and it's available. So new versions as they're available can be downloaded there. You can open Asset Manager, search for camera, click Install. Sure to read the recent release notes. A scripting engine license is required for you to use ACPR or any of the Q-SYS plugins. So just know that when you're designing or specifying the system, that you would want to make sure you have the scripting engine license as part of that as well. The ACPR plugin is now part of the VisionSuite package. So the version number of all VisionSuite plugins will now follow the same numbering as the Seervision software firmware versions as well too. The package includes Q-SYS Seervision plugin, the automatic camera preset recall plugin, and all accompanying and supporting documentation. We do provide for you installing the automatic camera preset recall from Asset Manager includes several sample designs. So you can see you will receive in your sample designs folder, it will populate in there. These designs can be used to help Q-SYS programmers get started no matter what microphone and camera they have. So we go through and we kind of talk about all the different types that you have there. So for instance, it'll, what name your cameras. Whoops. Well, I'm really Johnny on the spot with today. Discrete microphone. What am I using? Discrete microphones? Am I using go through any the different types of intelligent microphones and everything. So the ACPR 3.1 plugin features now support the MXA 920 and the Sennheiser TCC-M as well as the TCC-2. We've added home position masking. We have the ability to do up to 16 primary cameras. So if you do primary and secondary, which we'll talk about the difference of those in just a little bit, the difference between primary and secondary. So you could have up to 32 cameras in a single design. It's going to be a pretty sizable room there. We've improved the crosstalk and far end talker detection. We'll talk about what that feature allows us to do. We also directly connect to the network microphone. So we don't need to pull in the data. We don't need to pull in a plug-in for those microphones that are providing us intelligent data. That's all integrated now in the plugin. We have new features for setting up zones, some more expert controls so you can copy zone data from one plugin to another. Maybe you were using an old version of the plugin, and now we have, instead of you having to move all those coordinates over and you want to upgrade the plugin, we've got a button that will move all of that stuff over for you. So it reduces the time to change that. It's a complete overhaul of the tracking engine with increased stability and speed as well. It's available, Q-SYS NC series cameras we talked about. I kind of talked about them in great deal earlier on, but the NC 110 is a fixed lens. And it features 110-degree horizontal view. That one we see is primarily like a wide shot. So one of the features that we can do is that we can go back to a wide shot of the room whenever the far end is talking. So we see the NC 110 there. The 1280 and the 2060, both motorized pan, tilt, and zoom. They're all of them are they're both compatible in the ACPR plugin. The NC series cameras can be deployed in any combination of either primary or secondary. The NC And we'll talk more as we move on about what that means for you there. So as you can see here, when you secondary camera support. So this is one of the things that I really like for people to understand. One of the initial feedbacks that we got from people was, hey, when it switches to another preset, you know, when someone else starts to talk, if there's just one camera at the front of the room, then I'm seeing this camera motion going over to the next person, and then someone else talks. So if it's an active and engaged meeting, you're seeing people, the camera, you're seeing a lot of movement. People, you know, we're getting kind of almost seasick, I guess, from the far end. So what we came up with was a solution where we have a primary at each position. We have a primary camera and a secondary camera. Now, what you're seeing here in this picture is this is a shot of our Q-SYS Experience Center training room in Austin. Now, in a training room, it's not very deep, but it's got a little more width to it. And in that environment, what we have is a pair of cameras that capture from the center of the room to the left, and a pair of cameras that capture the center of the room to the right. In you know, a standard conference room, you might just have a pair of cameras in the middle. But what the cameras do is, while the primary camera, let's say of these two cameras that are highlighted right here, let's say someone at the back desk is talking and it's picking that camera. And so the primary camera is on them. If someone at the front desk, or maybe over here towards the middle, starts to talk, that secondary camera will go and grab that person. And once it's there focused, then it will switch over to that other camera. So it adds just a half a second or a little bit of time of delay between that. But the juice is worth the squeeze on this one, because it's eliminating that camera movement and motion that's in there. So that's kind of why you're here. When you hear secondary and primary cameras, it's a pair of cameras at a position that will work together in tandem to not do that. We can have 16 cameras, like I said, that work in primary and 16 in secondary. And so if we take a look, you can see here that now when this person is talking, the other person on the other side of the table starts to talk. And what happens is the secondary camera then moves over and takes that shot. So we don't see any of the camera movement, the initial. This is an example of, like I said, a medium-sized conference room where, you know, you might just have a pair of cameras in the middle. You might have a pair of cameras, and then below them or above them, you might have the NC-110 to just grab a wide shot of the room too. So that's kind of what the idea there is. The far end sees no movement, just a simple switch to a new camera view. Now, one thing I didn't mention back on the page prior to this, is the part down here at the bottom, is we do also have a home position masking. So what we have is, if we're switching from one camera to another camera, we can say, we can blank that, hold that camera image, and then wait. And when it gets to the place where it's at, we get a logic high out of that camera, and then we can then take that shot. It's not as clean. It doesn't, you know, if you're moving various different places, it's not as reactive, but it is a feature that's in there as well. Oh, well, here we go. I didn't know this one had more animation. There we go. So that person's talking, the camera has there. You can see here, if more people in the room start to talk, it will take a wide shot of the room. And then if someone gets up and starts to talk from the front of the room, this is when the rear camera might come into play and take the shot of the person standing at the front of the room. You may find that, you know, as a rear camera or a whiteboard camera or something like that, that you don't need to have secondary and primary, because it's a fixed location that people are going to go to. They're going to come in and out of it. So you're going to switch to that camera, and then you're going to switch back to the camera's focused on the table. So lots of cool features that can be done inside of there. ACPR works with lots of different microphones. So we use the Sennheiser Team Connect, both the TCC2 I mentioned and the TCC-M. The Audio Technica, my favorite one, the ATDN 1061 Dan. I thought that was very flattered that they named it after me, or it might just be that it's a Dante-based one or the other. Shure over here, the MXA 920 is available for that as well. The NMT1 microphone from Q-SYS would work as a you use that in a gated function. So it's not providing intelligent data, but if that microphone's in front of a group of people at a table, we're going to know, hey, there's audio in that off of that particular lobe, because these have 4 lobes on them. And so that's what you'd have. Or discrete microphones. The absolute best in conferencing audio, I believe, is when you have a discrete microphone right near someone's mouth. But then once again, that's what we would call is a discrete microphone or a gating microphone situation. So when the technicians are setting this up, it's simply a mode that they choose in the ACPR plugin, and just choose what particular mic, and it's going to configure and ask certain questions based on that as well. Currently 4 modes. TCC2 using positional data, discrete mics, audio level or gating trigger, NMT1, and then the ATDN 60 and the 920 as well. So the Audio-Technica ATDN 1060 will do a active zone, or it will do an audio trigger on that one as well too. The microphones that provide coordinate information are the ATDN 1060 DAN, the Team Connect, and the MXA 920. The ACPR plugin can support up to 10 third-party intelligent microphones. So you can really do a large room if you need to. So, one of the benefits, vertical positioning, the nice thing about all of these is they not only do they provide horizontal data, but they provide vertical data. And that was one thing I forgot to mention in that animation. When that person stood up from the table, they may have still had the same horizontal data of where they were at, but now the voice was coming from a different vertical position, and we're able to trigger a different preset of that. So that is a definite benefit, rather than if you're just using, some people use the older MXA 910s, just using the lobes off of those. Well, and the problem is a lobe covers just a horizontal section. There was no way to tell if someone's standing up or sitting down. Or obviously, if you have gated mics or discrete mics on the table, you're not going to be able to get that. So that is a nice benefit that comes with using that as well. So the automatic camera preset recall plugin, like I said, this is kind of we're focused on design engineers and salespeople here, so I won't dive super deep into it. But it's a great interface. Once you've plugged all of the data in, you've got all the information, directly connects to the networked microphones if you're using those. And also you'll notice that we have a range of conditions. So here is 0 to 80, 81 to 130. So that's the horizontal axis. And then you'll see the vertical axis between 10 and 60. And so that actually, because you can't just say, I might lean in my chair over here, or I might lean in my chair over here, or someone a little taller or a little shorter may sit down. So we want to be able to do a range of that. So so there's a lot of things to consider on that. The Audio-Technica microphone is an ideal solution for conference rooms, boardrooms, meeting spaces, large and small. It can be used singly or in multiples. The ATDN has 6 individual output channels, which collectively can be configured up to 32 user-defined microphone pickup zones that provide active zone or audio level information for use within the camera preset recall. So if you're doing these that provide more of a zone information, that would be one of them. The NMT1 will provide 4 software-enabled zones for a 360-degree coverage. If you've got one in the middle of the table towards the display side of the table, you may disable the lobe towards the front of the room, and towards the front of the table, maybe you're just using the 2 lobes for either side. Whatever the case may be, but that's some of the tools you could have for doing zone type information. Excuse me. So when you're doing zone type here, it'll just tell you what zone you'll choose, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and then you're going to assign in there which particular microphone or which information is coming in there. So you can kind of see we're bringing these all into the mixer and then going based on which one goes to a logic high. We'll do that as well. So the automatic camera, all of the channels get brought into the ACPR plugin, and it will detect which ones do that. So the nice thing is there you can kind of gain those up if you need to. and you can identify your zones using bringing them directly into the plugin. And then you could also have those mics routed to a gating mic mixer in your whole conferencing path as well. So kind of nice on that front as well. All right, so let's take a look now at microphones. So the ACPR plugin can support up to just 90 discrete microphones. So if you're looking for just a discrete mic channel, same type of situation here, where you would just plug each channel into that. That's going to become really a large, I guess we decided if we made it for 30, thinking, well, that would be a lot. Someone would need 35. And if we made 40, somebody would need 60. So we went all the way to 90. So it could support up to 90 microphones. You're just bringing each one of those in, and that microphone indicates that's this particular area, and that's the camera preset that gets recalled. This is a topic that I always like to take about. People say, do I need extra microphones to use ACPR? And the answer is no. Really, sometimes we use less microphones than what's the audio pickup. It's some experimentation, and obviously going to hands-on training for ACPR and Seervision will help deal with some of this. But there's typically no need to deploy more ceiling microphone than the manufacturer indicates. And in some cases, like I said, in some cases we may even say, hey, look, we're going to use positional data from both of these, or in this case over here, we're just looking at what the tools of the microphone manufacturer recommend, and then go from that. Looks like we have a question here. Oh, Mr. Anonymous, with discrete mics, can they be analog table mics, for instance, routed to a Q-SYS core? Or does it need to be a digital network certified mic? No, actually, I'll answer that one live here. They can be absolutely just analog microphones. So I know that all the ones we showed kind of were digital or wireless or something coming over Dante. But no, just a standard analog microphone can be plugged in if, and use just any type of gooseneck or whatever the case may be. So absolutely good question. Thank you. So ceiling mic placement. This is something that I think it's relevant to be discussed, and it's one of the common things that we see with people. So a lot of times people will look at a room like this and say, all right, we have a lot of people around this table. We've got primary and secondary cameras on the left and the right. We've got a pair of primary and secondary in the center. We've got some side cameras here to get good shots on people further down the table, maybe, well provided for room here as far as camera coverage. Now, some folks may look at this and say, well, this, I'm going to put these microphones right here where the people talking here will get to it, and people here will get to this one. But really what you want to think about, is that would be great if people sat in a video conference meeting and looked across the table. But unfortunately, what they typically do is they turn and they use the, they actually turn and they look towards the screen. So what we end up having here is, people will say, could you speak up, please? Right? It sounds like your back is to us, or whatever. I'm not diminishing the quality of these microphones, but it's always better to talk into the path of the microphone. So what we found is if you take these microphones and you just move them slightly forward, then what you have is, think about that. The very front people should be aligned up with about the close to the front of the table, so that you're actively talking into a beam. So think of the telemetry of the microphone, and also just the pure physics of where the sound coming out of your mouth is headed towards. So, you may not slide that rear one forward as much, but the idea there is that we're capturing, we're putting it in the path of where people are at. It's also important that if you're using a ceiling beamforming microphone, that you enable an exclusion zone and make sure that, there's certain areas of the room where, I don't want reflections off the wall, especially if, let's say this wall over here is, the nice glass wall into the hallway that people like to do in boardrooms sometimes. That's going to be really reflective, and you don't want reflections off that wall, that glass wall, or this could be to the outside of the building, whatever the case may be. You don't want those reflections coming back and being perceived as a false trigger there. So just something to be aware of and think about that. So use the exclusion zones. if the beamforming microphones have that and do that. Some ceiling microphones use muted areas as exclusion zones. Determine what's right for your situation. And by consulting the microphone manual and setup guide. So, and then the last issue that we have sometimes is we have what we call a crossover zone, right? So areas where microphone coverage may overlap, we call that a crossover zone. And we actually have a way that we can deal with that inside the Q-SYS plugin for ACPR. So inside of there, the crossover zones when the coverage area of the two intelligent microphones overlaps, which is, you know, inevitably going to happen. You can tighten them up as much as you want, but I'd rather have a little overlap than left out. What you can actually do there is you can say, hey, look, you know, here's my primary, you know, my active microphone is up here, but my crossover mic is this one. And so just know that if you see this positional data for the primary mic and this positional data for the crossover mic, that this is the preset that you need to take. So like I said, this plugin has matured quite a bit since its original inception. Crossover detection. So when multiple people in the room speak simultaneously, the ACPR plugin can recall the default home position. So which, you know, may be a wide shot of the room. I don't know. It could be a picture of the corner if you really want to be obtuse like that. But actually, typically, once you get multiple people in the room speaking, what you do is it'll go back to a home position. There's a drop-down menu in the example file and also in the design setup for the plugin that will adjust the rate at which it sees the camera, sets the camera to the default home position. There's a none, there's a slow, medium, fast, or custom. If customs is used, you have to go to what we call the expert control page and set that up. But if crosstalk has been detected, the LED will turn on, and which is a logic high and low. When this occurs, preset recalling will not happen. So if multiple beams or multiple locations are talking at one time, it's going to go to that wide shot, and it's going to hold it as long as multiple people are talking in different zones. Now, I mentioned the expert controls. So there is a setting in the tab in the plugin for expert controls where silencing the home position trigger time. So in seconds, there must be silence on the local mic and the local loudspeakers until a home position gets executed. So that setting is between 1 and 15. Far end home position trigger time. So this is time in seconds that the audio from the local speakers, there must be audio on the local speakers until a home position gets executed. The range is 1 to 15 on this one as well. The control background is a meter to indicate kind of how close to the detected level is the threshold at that point. Crosstalk trigger, custom level control is if the preset on the setup page is set to custom, this is the threshold at which the crosstalk gets called. The range is 0 to 1. The control background is also a meter to indicate how close the detected level is to the threshold. So if we're looking for, you know, so it's just a range from 0, it's a floating decimal number up to 1.0. So you'll kind of see that crosstalk detection custom trigger level. You'll see how long it's taking before it actually triggers. Crosstalk reset custom time. So if the minimum, this is a minimum time in seconds for how long the camera will stay in the home position after a crosstalk event has been triggered. This is a range from 1.0 to 15.0. So it will stay in that position after crosstalk has been triggered. You know, you can set that, hey, I want that to stay for 3 seconds and then switch over to other people talking at that point. But whatever works best for the customer and for the environment is what you want to use there. Mic detection threshold is just sets the threshold that the microphone signals have to be above the noise floor to be detected as valid. Lower value means a quicker detection, but you're going to get more errors, right? So when you lower that value and you turn that down, you know, that's when the little reflection off the wall or things like that may be triggered there. So kind of play with that. It's similar. It's, you know, very similar to where your gates are set on a mic. So this one's going to be for microphone, you know, so you want to think about that and set it up appropriately. far end detection threshold. So this sets the threshold that the far end audio signal has to be above the noise floor to be detected as a valid signal. Lower value on this means a quicker detection time, but once again, you're going to get a little bit more errors there, right? And you want to know how long is it that the far end has to be talking before it will trigger that wide shot. This is where you adjust that setting. Zone hysteresis, this setting allows for an error of margin based on a camera, an angle-based zone. So for example, if we set to 5, a new zone will only be recalled when the angle of the microphone is 5 degrees, is greater or less than 5 degrees to the current zone, right? So if I'm in a particular zone and someone right next to me starts to talk, I may want to adjust. If it's set to 5, I may not flip right over to that person, and they may already be in that particular shot or on the fringe of it. So the bottom position here, load settings from the other ACPR plugin. Those people that used and installed our earlier versions and did all this time and setting all these coordinates and stuff up, they really appreciate this button. You you add the plugin to your design. You go here and you locate the component name and you say, boom, copy, and it moves all of the relevant data over. So very handy, time saver for upgrading there. So mic detection threshold, I kind of covered. Far end audio detection, zone hysteresis, we talked about in there. So did we talk about silence the home position? Yeah, we did. All right, so auto framing and ACPR design examples. So I'm just going to go through a couple of different designs here, just to let you know what exactly we're doing, where each of these fit. So in this one right here, we're going to start with the first one. So all types of rooms, regardless site types, require the same type of equipment. And I say type to get started using ACPR. Huddle spaces and small conference rooms, no exception, right? You need a Q-SYS core, and you can use one of our microphones, which would be great in a huddle room there because you're not really looking for any positional data. And then maybe one of our NC 110 cameras, right? So it's going to do that. And then it's just going to kind of auto frame. One thing to kind of remember, the auto framing works best when with the NC 110, it's really great because you can do a physical distance from it. About 10 to 12 feet back is about how far back from that camera that it's going to auto frame for you. With the PTZ cameras, you're going to need to kind of bring the zoom up a little bit and then kind of think about where the edge of that zoom is, and kind of 10 feet beyond that is where the auto framing will work. But this room right here, microphone on the table, Q-SYS core, and an NC 110 with some auto framing, it's going to be a nice, that's going to be a nice fit right there. Nothing really, no ACPR to set up or anything like that. And we just don't feel like this room would benefit from all the features of that. For the smaller spaces, we feel like auto framing is really all that you would need in this scenario. Let's see. So in smaller conference rooms, we talked about this one. We've got the auto framing in. We've got sound bars on the side. The NC camera will auto frame. This is a great opportunity to talk about bridging right here too. So, when you have an NV32 or any one of our core processor, any one of the smaller form factor cores, half RU cores, the Core 110, all have a bridging port on the back of them. So, and that bridging port, well, I kind of went ahead one slide. That bridging port is one way for your laptop to consume for a bring your own device type room, to be able to take the camera and the camera video and the audio coming from the processor and be able to send that out through your laptop as well. So in a medium-sized conference room, as we increase the size and capacity, you may require additional displays, and you may require additional loudspeakers, but ACPR in this case would still start the same way, right? So we may, in this example, we have a seating for 10 local meeting participants. Unified communications we managed with a user laptop. Oh, here we go. things are changing. There we go. Unified communication managed by a user laptop connected to the Q-SYS via USB. We'll use a Q-SYS NS series switch, 4 nano, 2 NC series PTZ cameras, and 2 Q-SYS NMT1 mics. The NCC cameras can both either act as primary and secondary, or they can both be primary. Just kind of play with your room and see what works the best there. The NMT1 will provide for software-enabled zones. You know, in this design, you might have one zone here, one zone there, one zone here, one zone there, and one zone there. So you might use 3 zones out of this one, 2 zones out of that one as well. Exclusion zones could be enabled as well. When you get into the medium conference room, you know, it may make sense too. In the medium conference room, you may use a beamforming intelligent ceiling microphone. The microphones in this case, they're going to provide positional data and similar type experience here, right? So if this microphone's here, notice it's towards the front of the room, so everyone's talking to it. But it's going to give us positional data, and it's going to tell the cameras which, and we're going to set up and choose presets based on that positional data. We get into that medium and kind of large conference room. ACPR can assist and help reduce some of the tunnel effect that's caused by large conference tables. You know, we talked about that before, where, you know, how many times in the past have you walked into a conference room and or you're on the far end of a call and someone's at the far end of the table and they don't touch the camera and all of that. So meeting equity is definitely it's better achieved, and it's a better experience for the far end, and the near end feels like they're more involved and they don't have to think about the technology in the room in there. So let's see, we've got a question over here. So please repeat the sweet spot for the NC 110 auto framing distance. The sweet spot for the NC auto framing distance. I repeated that. No, sorry. So actually you want to think about 10 to 12 feet from that is about where the auto framing, you get about past that and it doesn't really want to auto frame. So 10 to 12 feet on the NC 110, and then kind of think of an imaginary 10 to 12 feet from the end of the, if you zoomed in using one of the PTZ cameras, kind of, that's when it's going to function. The idea of the auto framing, right, is that, so if you're thinking 10 feet and you got a huddle room table that's right against the wall, you know, if you put 2-3 seats down the side, that's gonna be 2, 4, 6. The back of that table is about 8 feet. So just kind of, that's what you're looking for there. Great question. Thank you. So in the ACPR can help out here. The option here might be a pair of cameras on either side to try to get, you know, more of a side shot on people's faces as they're turning forward. You know, there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when we were looking at, you know, conference-friendly furniture where the tables were in a V, and that just never really caught on with the furniture companies or the architects. So we have to deal with the fact that everybody's in a single line here and we have cameras trying to grab it. And that's when putting a pair of cameras over on one side and a pair of cameras on the other side kind of help you get a little better view of what's going on there. All right. So when we start talking about flex spaces and combinable rooms, one of the cool features with the ACPR plugin in this case is, you know, we can have a plugin in the design set up to do the A side of the room and the B side of the room. And then when the wall is open and it's combined, we can have a third, we can disable the 2 other plugins and have a third one that we enable. You can have multiple different plugins, ACPR plugins in a design. And so this is one of the benefits you could get with using that as well. So if you've got a combined space, it works well in there. Let's look at the combined divide space just in general, right? So maybe we have a switch, we've got a processor, we have a computer for room A and a computer for room B. The computer's set up for soft conferencing through the Q-SYS NV series down here. And then we have the ability here, you know, we've got a touch screen in each room, and we have an ACPR plugin for room A and an ACPR plugin for room B. Did I go too far? I did. And then when we go to the combined room, then we go to one single combined microphone, ACPR combined type plugin. These are all the same plugins. Someone's just named them that. But that's a nice benefit that we have there. So same complement of equipment. You may want to, and you'll notice here again, we've kind of placed that intelligent microphone somewhere towards the front. And so just definitely one way to look at there. And also one thing to notice, we're running this on a single processor, right? The limitations on the Core Nano, 25 peripherals that can be upgraded with a license to more peripherals. This falls right inside of that design. So, a lot of power in the Q-SYS platform there. So in higher ed and lecture halls, what you might want to see in that is, in this space, we've got, a zone over here so that when the telemetry data from this microphone senses that someone's over here, we recall a preset there, or we recall a preset for zone 1, zone 2. If someone in the audience starts to speak, then we pick up zone 3. Kind of see the benefits there of doing that. Lecture spaces are an excellent candidates for the secondary camera, right? Because that's where you're really, like I was talking about in that training room, right? Training room, lecture space is where, you're going to have someone way over here talk and someone way over here talk. If you're going to have a lot of audience participation, this is where you may find that having primary and secondary cameras on the front and the rear may eliminate some of that far end struggles with excessive camera movement. But let's just take a quick look at what this system design would look like. A set of series 6 acoustic design series loudspeakers placed in the ceiling, beamforming intelligent microphone on each side of the space, cameras in the rear, maybe an NV32 decoder for the back of the room for the projector, if there's a projector. You have a decoder here at the front of the room for dual displays, touchscreen, wireless mics for the presenter to have. You may not have the presenter could still lift their voice using a wireless mic, but maybe the only thing that you're gathering, maybe the front of the room, you're only gathering positional data on where the presenters are from. You've got our QIO mic line 2 in, 2 out to add audio in and out for the SPA series amplifier for the wireless mic. So a couple channels out and a couple channels in for the mic. And the UC platform compute device. So basic setup there in that room. So Q-SYS ACPR user controls. So a lot of controls available there. We're showing this, on a Logitech tap. Controls from the ACPR plugin in the Q-SYS cameras can be put onto any UCI. That could be a Teams room controller. That could be, if we had a compute or control device for any of the other platforms, Google, Zoom, whatever the case may be, we can bring in these controls if need be on any type of UCI that we're able to present on. We also, if you do, for instance, if you download information on and plugins for instance, using Microsoft Teams, you'll notice that we'll provide a cascading style sheet that gives you all of the colors and the icons that are familiar to that. We have that for Zoom. We have that for Google Meet as well. So you can kind of make sure that when you're stepping, in some cases you may want when your users step away from the baked in interface, that it has the user interface still has the same look and feel and colors that they do there. So just a nice little add on that one as well. We have in here, say, instance buttons to enable auto preset recall or enable auto framing. So you can choose what you give to the customer and what you don't give to the customer. Maybe here you do all your own camera switching. When you do the cameras, the dates on the camera switching there, maybe you just want to give them manual control and presets, but then you want to enable ACPR so you can turn that on and off. Maybe, sometimes people may just want a wide shot of the room the whole time. So whatever, lots of features there. You can see once ACPR has been enabled, then this person's been brought into the camera frame. They know where to bring the camera to. You can see the camera, it's here doing what they need to do. Here we've kind of auto framed. It doesn't show up on the far end, but it is a feature that has been enabled for demonstration. It's not viewable on the camera preview. It only shows inside of there. We're just outlined to show where it's shooting in there. So when you enable auto framing, then it's going to be able to tighten up and auto adjust the camera for the people based on how many people are in the room. Design components. So we do the automatic camera. Programmers can enable ACPR as needed to allow for manual control of NC series cameras. So if for some reason you've got, you know, all these multiple cameras set up, and, you know, this is an executive boardroom, and 4 times a year they have meetings where they have someone come in and have the and actually operate the room. So you could disable the ACPR for those 4 times a year, and, you know, you can use. We do have plugins available for the Scarouche and also Visca controllers. So we have different camera controllers that we have plugins for. So if you need to do manual camera control, you can do that. Now, a time for a little bit of overview on the best practices. We'll wrap up the ACPR and the auto framing, and we're going to get into the Seervision piece here. So best practices, always follow best practices for gain structure and AAC. We do have just about every other month, you'll find a gain structure. And then on the opposing months, we typically have an AAC best practices. If your technicians haven't done that in a while, recommend. It's always a good refresher. I feel like sometimes when I teach it, I remember something that I had forgotten or whatever. So it's a good idea to have. Treat acoustic issues in the room. Mechanical issues can only be solved by mechanical means. You know, we have a great DSP, we have a great AAC, but, you know, it's not magic. Utilize the microphone manufacturer's configuration software to assist in determining the correct number of mics for the space. So if you're putting a ceiling microphone in, listen to what they have to say, and go with that. Speak towards the microphones. Intelligent microphones are still just microphones, so install them so they're not behind a person that's speaking. Install cameras to maintain a conversational eye line. You'll notice that, I mean, in this case, these are kind of up high because of that. That is one of my frustrations when I go into a conference room and the displays are 48 inches off the floor, and then the cameras are up above it like this. And nobody likes to be in a conference that looks like this. It's like this is what you're looking for. So try to always remember to bring those cameras down, put them below the displays. I had one customer before I came to work at Q-SYS that they liked their displays a little bit lower, so they would spread them apart and they would put their conferencing cameras in the middle. So that's an option too as well. Primary and secondary cameras, we continuously show them side by side, but they can be stacked on top of each other as well. So if that's what you want to do, you want to do that as well. So, once again, if you're using, this is just a snippet out of a setup manual for the MXA 920. If you're using that, look at the tools that they give you, prep the room, set it up, position your talkers properly based on what they say. If the manufacturer is happy with, if you follow the manufacturer's guidelines, then we're going to probably have good results on our end as well too. So automatic camera preset recall, just a few things, is for using positional data or gated microphones. You can add a secondary camera, which will help minimize unwanted camera movement, almost eliminate it. Better for broadcasting and recording situations. Our NC series cameras can automatically frame people now. And multiple instances of ACPR plugin can be used in a single design. And a scripting engine license is required for all use. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on. I got somebody blowing me up in Teams. I think it doesn't realize what red means. So anyways, thanks. So next steps, let's see, let's move on. If you see the ACPR, if you want to see the ACPR plugin in action, you can go to our Q-SYS region. You can contact your Q-SYS regional salesperson, and they can schedule a live demonstration from one of our offices. Also, you can go to training.qsys.com and log in and potentially intake the assessment for this if you would like to. So I'm going to move right into designing for Q-SYS VisionSuite with the Seervision AI. Hopefully some of you weren't just waiting around the entire time for just the Seervision part. And if so, send me notes, let me know, hey, break this into 2 different ones. I already understand ACPR. I wanted to just get the Seervision. But so here we go. So Seervision is now part of Q-SYS, has been for a good part of a year now. It's a solution that is an AI accelerator software, and it leverages computer vision-based scene analysis and adaptive full body tracking to automatically follow and frame a presenter for a lot more natural experience. Together with Q-SYS, it enables a holistic, intelligent video solution for remote learning and high impact collaboration spaces as well. So you can see here that this is kind of a sample of what you would see from Seervision when it's tracking there. So, you know, and this is an image of all of the different points on the body that it was using to track. So, yeah, and I wish there was a point where he would turn all the way around, but the beautiful part about all those different points is it's not just looking at the face. So if he were to turn around, it would still recognize him as the person being tracked. It also predicts some of the movement. One of the things I like to do when I'm messing around with the Seervision is like run really fast and see how fast it can track me. I mean, I'm a pretty big guy, so I don't know how fast I'm really running them. But anyways, that's the idea there. So I always like people to see that, because the idea is that it's going to slowly track. And there's some other features and functions that we can have along with that. We've got a question up here that I'm going to take here for the Seervision and the jokes. Absolutely. I think the jokes are maybe the best part. Oh, I did finally get rid of them. I am a 2-time winner here at Q-SYS for best dad jokes. One best dad jokes of the pandemic, and then best dad jokes on demand. My coworkers, however, say it's most, Dan, most, not best. So anyways, I appreciate that, Mr. Anonymous. So the Seervision presenter tracking is the server is IP-based. It requires just a single network connection to integrate into Q-SYS. The Seervision solution uses video data to analyze and control the dedicated Q-SYS network cameras without ever affecting the actual video signal. So we're never plugging cameras into in the Q-SYS version of this. We're never bringing cameras directly into it. We're actually just bringing the network stream, because in Q-SYS, our cameras are all network-based cameras. They're PoE. If you weren't aware, they're PoE, a single network connection to them. It's a media cast stream we get out of that. So we ingest that stream in, and that's how it deals with it. It's only compatible. Seervision is only compatible with the NC series network cameras, the NC1280 and the NC2060. These are deployed for presenter tracking or for stationary views, like if we're doing a whiteboard shot or something like that, or a trigger zone. The NC110 network PT is good for wide angle. So if you're going back for a wide angle shot of a room, or for stationary views. So the Seervision solution can be applied to new system designs, as well as all your existing installation integrations as well. For existing systems, consult your area manager, make sure that it's compatible and can be upgraded to the required firmware and equipment. The Seervision AI accelerator, it's kind of like having a camera operator on call for every meeting, class, or event that you have. So Seervision AI. So let's talk about that in just a little greater detail. So you're gonna watch here as she's moving around in the frame. It uses a predictive algorithm. We want to capture dynamic movement for a natural hybrid experience. Seervision leverages computer-based scene analysis and full body tracking. You'll notice that when she stepped into that particular zone over there, that it tightened the shot up for more of a head type shot. And now it's came back to more of a 3/4 shot here. So it works if someone's body is turned or if they're partially obscured. And it builds unique IDs. You can kind of see here that it's created. This is person number 55. It's created a unique ID. And it's it builds that based on the facial features, clothing, height, etc. One of the things that I never even thought about that people asked early on when we adopted this technology was, how does it handle people that aren't able-bodied? You know, how does it handle people in wheelchairs, things like that? Absolutely, we'll track enough. You'll see that there's a lot of points of reference up towards the top, distance, eyes, ears, across the chest, all that. So it handles quite well. So it works really well. Height, basic facial features, basic skeletal structure, clothing, hair color, more. You know, so that's kind of that's how what it's analyzing to get to. The Seervision software is configured using a web interface GUI, and this is kind of an example of that. You'll see that this is what the technicians would see when they're setting it up, right? As they see they've got a window of what the camera is tracking. You can see whether they're doing a half body shot, a wide shot, tracking different things that they can do in there. The GUI can be accessed by entering the IP address of the server followed by the camera instance. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Google Chrome is our preferred browser to access the GUI. Once you're in the desired tracking areas, triggers and containers have been configured to control to have Seervision be managed by a Q-SYS core. The web GUI itself is comprised of three main parts: tools and settings on the left, preview and control down in the middle, and then your containers and presets on the right-hand side. Tools and settings. So the Seervision web GUI features are discussed in depth as part of an upcoming Q-SYS VisionSuite commissioning. But just a brief overview, just so you're familiar. Streams. Streams are the video feeds previewed in the Seervision GUI. This is where the computer vision can be toggled on or off. Trigger zones are zones, designated areas with current camera field of view that can be used to enable and recall shot containers, as well as other control parameters. When we say shot container, that's kind of like as that person moved over to the whiteboard area, it said, oh, wait, they're not giving a general, we need to focus on the whiteboard and go to, an upper body shot on that. So that's kind of some of the things you can do in those. Once established, a trigger zone becomes usable within the Q-SYS design. So if you've seen, I think a couple of activates ago, we were demonstrating this, and when someone walked over and grabbed an energy drink out of the refrigerator, the whole room turned into a dance party. Now, we're not saying that, and then of course our compadres at Seervision were like, it doesn't work well in the dark. Why did you turn the lights out? We're like, we're just having fun. Obviously cameras need light and all that to work, but that's what you can do with trigger zones. So a lot of different things, not necessarily trigger a dance party, but it might be, hey, if someone's getting towards this area, you may, bring on a different light for the lighting control or whatever the case may be. Exclusion zones, designated areas within the current field of view that are ignored by the tracking algorithm, such as a display screen, because if there's a human being up on a screen, what you do is you put your tracking zone below the screen so that it doesn't accidentally try to track movement on there or think that it's a person in there. Containers and presets on the right side. Containers are camera shots that can be recalled like a preset, whether that's a wide shot, a half body shot, active tracking. Those are all different things you'll find over in the container and presets. The Seervision components. Required components of the presenter. AI tracking can be added to any Q-SYS design or existing system that uses a current generation Q-SYS core and NC series cameras. So the Seervision accelerator only requires power and a network connection. That's it. We just need it to be on the network. We're going to send it the camera streams through that network connection. Internet connectivity is required only for the initial setup and any kind of error reporting to Seervision support if needed to be. There are two models of the accelerator available, the SVS1 2U and the SVS4 2U. So the SVS1 supports a single tracking camera, and this makes no sense to me, but I'm not in charge of naming the products. The SVS4 supports two tracking cameras or a tracking camera plus a conductor camera. Model names are holdovers from legacy systems. So that's kind of why it doesn't follow our naming convention there. So let's see. There we go. So the required components, either the NC1280 or the 2060 can be utilized as tracking, static, or conductor camera. The NC110 can only be used as a conductor camera or a static camera. As a tracking camera, the NC series camera role will be to actively track the camera or the presenter. When deployed as a conductor, the camera's job is to look at the total presentation area of a room and provide visual triggers to Q-SYS. The conductor camera can also be used as a fallback view when tracking a presenter is not required or other conditions. So the conductor is, you add a separate camera in the back that's always looking at the whole room. And so then it kind of knows when people move in and out of different spaces. So the best performance is typically provided with that. You'll see here the 1280 and the 2060. You know, for a medium shot, we recommend somewhere around 36. Full body shot, no more than 60 is kind of where we want to cut that one off. You'll see, evaluate the two factors. How wide is the field of view and what is the distance from the camera that the subject is to be tracked? So use the tools online. They'll help you choose the correct camera on that. And then also, Seervision recommended camera distance are based upon the available pre-configured tracking shot types within Seervision. So we've got a close-up shot. So, you know, if you've got a pretty deep room, you may need that 20 by 60, something with a little bit more zoom to get that close-up. If everything you're doing is full body or 3/4, you know, you may not need that type of depth as well. So just be aware of those things when you're setting up these designs. I'm going to go through a couple of design examples here, and then we'll kind of wrap everything up. I really appreciate everyone sticking around to go through this. So consideration, Seervision, the Seervision AI presenter tracking works best when there's a defined presentation area. Lecture halls, training rooms, large classrooms are great examples where presenter tracking really shines. You know, what you haven't seen here and what you won't see is we're not going to use this to track who's talking at a conference table, right? So it's for people that are, you know, if you have a conference room that people often present to the far end from the front of the room, this may be a good solution for that, but definitely you're going to see it in, you know, lecture halls, training rooms, classrooms. That's where it really shines. Control of the room can be augmented by using the Seervision trigger zones. Since these trigger zones are managing Q-SYS, they can be used for such things as lighting control, volume level adjustments, initiating a recording. You know, it might be in a higher ed type environment. You know, well, let's see what the automation here does here. No track, you know, when someone's not in, when they go into the presenter tracking zone. So maybe when you're outside, if you can see these purple boxes on either side, hey, when someone's back here, it'll fall back and say, hey, I don't need to track them until they walk into a specific certain. Maybe once they go in there, the displays turn on or turn off or whatever the case. We've got a lot of triggers. It's Q-SYS, so if we get information from something, we can always do something with it. Single presenter user experience. So we have a lot of several different user experiences here. So one presenter camera, a Q-SYS network NC series PTZ camera. It automatically tracks the presenter in the trigger zone. And it does presenter tracking when it's in there. And then when they leave the tracking area, the presenter camera moves to a user-defined fallback position, such as a wide view of the room. So in the software, we would draw these boxes of, hey, this is the tracking zone, and this is a fallback zone. Don't track when they're in that area. And, you know, if instructors or people that are using it are trained properly in that, they can step back and like talk from over there and get a wide shot of the room if they don't want to be tracked. So that's one of the use cases there. What you would see here is, you know, a camera, an NV21 as a Q-SYS decoder for the projector in the room, an NC21 for any whiteboarding that might be done, or anything else that might be up on the screen. And then you've also got ADC series loudspeakers and a positional mic in there as well. So a single presenter and a static view. So in this one, you might have a trigger zone that tracks the person walking back and forth. And that's where you may go left or right. You know, that was one of the positions along with full body, 3/4 body, half body shot. You can also say, you know, track them when they're in a particular zone. You can also set up a static zone. Hey, when they go to the whiteboard, I want to take a different type of shot. So you can set a static zone up in there. So that design example would be a single presenter and a static view for the user experience. Similar type of setup over here, confidence monitors on the side we've added here, lighting control as well, but you got your whiteboard lectern view and you've got a presenter tracking area in front of the larger display and then a fixed area for the tracking. So the single presenter and a static view plus ACPR. So this is one that we think really makes a lot of sense. And this could be combined all at once. But the nice thing with this is we're going to be able to get, you know, the tracking is going to go on, but if someone asks a question, you can see that, oh, okay, well, the ACPR has said someone in the audience is talking. Let's bring in a shot of them. So, and that's where setting that ACPR up properly, like they have to talk for so long. Maybe you want them to, you know, how fast it switches, but all of that can be controlled. Elevate the experience with Q-SYS automatic camera preset recall so that as people in the room start to talk, we're actually bringing them into the frame. So here you can see, once again, NS series switch, network amplifier, Seervision server. We've added here maybe some beamforming mics or some intelligent microphones in the rear of the room. This one's going to capture the audio from here. These are going to capture people in the back of the presentation space. So the last one is multi-presenter user experience. So supports a second camera, conductor camera, that handles the presenter handoff. So holding a wider field of view while the presenter cam frames the new presenter. So the conductor cam will always hold a wide shot. In this use case, you would also would allow you to add a static view camera in addition to the presentation conductor camera. This would require, though, that you have the SVS4 2U. Note to you want to refer to your scope of work document for more details of what it all is included if you were to get Q-SYS commissioning on that as well. So this room, you know, the things that we added in here, you've got Dante microphones, you've added a conductor camera at the back, which is always taking a wide shot of the room, and then the presenter is tracking. That's so that you can have multiple presenters, so it'll know when to hand it off based on the conductor camera there. Seervision quoting process. So what we ask for you to do is when you're looking to quote Seervision, determine if it's, we want to help you determine if AI presenter tracking is the right fit for your project. Contact your Q-SYS area manager. Your area manager and advanced application engineer will evaluate the project and assist in completing the intake form. The Seervision intake form is used for quoting purposes, as well as determining the level of remote commissioning that may be required for the project as well. So we do offer commissioning services. Initially, when we were first rolling this product out, before we had training out to the field, we required that all Seervision purchases had our on-site commissioning, or at least our remote commissioning, just because we wanted to make sure that people were getting a good experience out there. So reach out to your area managers and they can help you out with that. The project process. So to deliver optional experience when we commission a system, Q-SYS trained engineers will collaborate through the design and the deployment phase and ensure the expected outcome. All remote commissioning is included on all VisionSuite until VisionSuite certification is achieved by the quoting integrator. So if you've already got enough people through the training, you won't need a remote commissioning to be included. It's provided by trained Q-SYS personnel or Q-SYS VisionSuite technology partners. So we do have some folks out there that are, you know, commissioning engineers and agencies that'll do that for you. We have over 20 trained Seervision system commissioners planning and scheduling these deployments as best in class experience. So best practices, make sure that the presenter to be that the area where the presenter to be tracked is adequate. Is there a designated presentation area? Is there a clear shot of that presentation area? Are the seated meeting participants going to interfere with that tracking area? Is the tracking and presentation area well lit? Remember, the Seervision software needs to be able to clearly see the person to be tracked to assign and determine identifiers. Position cameras so that the center of the tracking presentation area is aligned with the center of the camera lens. Create exclusion zones for displays, doorways, artwork that may contain people in it. For larger tracking areas, you want to make sure, and multiple presenters are combinable to visible rooms, employ a conductor camera. It's going to help manage that. And that's where we ask that you do the intake form, right? We're going to run through some of these checklists and some of these best practices. We're going to ask some of the questions that maybe you didn't take home from today's webinar as well. So Seervision Accelerator is a server-grade appliance, so it can be located anywhere on the network. We please ask that you engage Q-SYS in the quoting process and also for remote demonstrations. You know, if you not only can you, your engineers, your sales folks send this up. We ask if you're looking to pitch this to a particular company and they want to roll a couple rooms of this out, let them see what exactly it does rather than take my word for it. This is going to be awesome. Let's set up a live demo. Let's get them involved in that. So we do those quite a bit in our 2 experience centers. So you can schedule that as well. Questions and discussions. Anything that I didn't touch on? All right. Well, I really appreciate it. I think I may have set the land speed record for getting done in under 90 minutes. But we really appreciate the dedication and time to everyone that joins these webinars. If you have any questions, reach out to your area managers. We have our field application engineers have all been going around for the last year doing this trainings on how to use this. And we'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Happy holidays to everyone. And we'll see you next Monday. We're not doing a Tuesday webinar. It's next Monday. We're going to talk about, if you know Kevin Rodas, he's one of our, he's our platform integration manager. He does a tiny little 12-acre Christmas light show in Ohio. He's going to walk through how he controls that with Q-SYS and how he supervises it with Q-SYS Reflect. So he can go to dinner and leave his house in the evenings between Thanksgiving and the New Year when the light show is going on. So anyways, we really appreciate it. Thank you all very much for joining us. And we'll see you next Monday if you decide to join that. Thank you. Bye-bye.